Hi, everybody. Today I wanted to talk about regulation and really more specifically what I'll call co-regulation. Co-regulation is how do we attune ourselves and our interactions to the people around us. So how am I with your child to support him in knowing that I'm completely with him through a range of emotional states? So it's not just when your child is happy or not just when your child is unhappy, but how do we regulate with somebody else through a range of emotional states? I'm going to say that the first component is attunement. And this is a piece that links to authenticity for many of our children. If you try to attune to somebody, but you're saying the words and not walking the talk, your children will feel that. And it may actually make them more upset in that moment. But when we attune and we're authentic, your child can feel that. And it requires us to be present. It requires empathy. And it requires us to feel together in that moment with your child so that your child doesn't feel that I'm just saying these things to him, but really in this moment I am connected and I'm with him. There's lots and lots of discussion about zones of regulation and how do we sort of manage our vocabulary with children around this topic. Some people use the concept of green zones and red zones. And I'll use those with you today in a way to help make sense. If we think about the green zone, one description of it that I really like coming from Connie Lilas is that in the green zone, a child is flexible and stable, meaning that they're able in that moment to adjust their interactions to me, and I'm able to adjust my interactions to them, and they can handle things at other times that they could not handle. That is opposed to the red zone. And in the red zone, typically a child is over-aroused and they're dysregulated, and there's a lot of stress, and the stress is often moving back and forth between the parent and the child. Something to think about in these moments is how do we communicate our zones between ourselves and our children. So when our child is in a green zone and we're in a green zone, we're perfectly green together, meaning that if I approach my child from a green zone, he will feel my positive energy and naturally regulate with me. If the child is in a green zone, so let's just say he's playing with his Duplos or playing with his trains and very happy in this moment. But I'm not in a green zone, I'm in a red zone, meaning it's time for dinner, I've called you 3 times and you have not moved, and I'm feeling a little frustrated. So if as the adult I move towards the child with my red zone, the child being in the green zone, I'm going to communicate red and over-arousal and stress to the child. And amazingly enough, most children will pick up my red energy and go with it. And we'll move into what we call a co-escalating pattern of escalation. I'm going to move into hyper-arousal. My child will be in hyper-arousal. And together we will not be able to be calm. That's one way. Another way is to think about if I'm completely green and my child is in that red zone or that hyper-aroused state, and I can come to my child with my presence completely calm, and they will regulate to me. So if the child is wired to take on my emotional energy, so when I approach the child from the red zone, the child will become red as well. If instead I approach the child from my green regulated state, the child will be able to take that on. What that means for us as parents and as educators is that the adult has to take on the responsibility for the emotional tone of the interaction. If I want the child to come out of the interaction with the knowledge that he can move towards me in safety, which is what our goal is for our interactions with children, then I have to stay green. It's not to say that sometimes I won't express frustration or my upset, but when I'm moving into interaction with children, especially children that are not doing what I've asked, I have to move from a place of a green, well-regulated state so that I can communicate that state to the child so that he can start to collaborate with me through that moment. So co-regulation is a really important principle. It's something that takes a lot of practice to think about how do we implement that with children. So I want you to sit with this information, think about it, and practice how do you authentically share your green state with your child. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to our next video together. Bye-bye.